Welcome to Tell the Trevor Guys. I'm your host, Trevor Shelley, and on today's episode, I have.
Chris TNT Taylor.
Alright, what sparked your interest in the professional wrestling?
I grew up during the golden age, man. Hulkamania, Randy Savage. I remember Zeus being there for the little time he was in there, man. So it's just like when you grew up in that era, it's kind of like I felt like that was kind of like a calling because I connected with it so much, and I'm like, man, I want to do this one day.
How were you. I mean, who were your mentors for wrestling growing up?
Let's see. Growing up, let's see. I would say Bret Hart was definitely one of my favorites. Um, At one point, I was the tallest kid in class, so I looked up the Diesel also because he was so tall. I was like, man, one day I'm gonna be 7 foot, but life had different plans.
Yeah,
But yeah, I would say those, man. And then it's like the older I got, the more it kind of branched out. But those were like my main go-tos growing up.
yeah. How did you get your start in the wrestling world?
Um, I moved to a town, um, Mount Airy, trying to just get things back together in my life. And one day I was grocery shopping, and I saw a wrestling poster. I was like, no way. In town, and I haven't been to an indie wrestling show since I was like maybe 12 or 13. So I was
Oh,
excited, man. I love all forms of wrestling. Big leagues, indies, anything, man. So I saw the poster and I saw I had an email address, so I sent an email to the company. I was like, "Hey, you guys doing tryouts or camps or anything like that?" And so they were surprised. They responded back pretty fast. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're having camps in a few weeks, and come on down. We could get you trained." And
yeah.
so Uh, fate would have it, I was one of the few guys that stuck around.
What was your first wrestling match like?
Um, Nervous, man, to be honest, because I was supposed to be a referee that night, but one of the guys didn't make it, so they're like, "Hey, you've been trained. Would you mind doing this match?" I was like, "Well, yeah, I can do it." And so, you know, he doesn't wrestle anymore, but it was a big guy, Big Brad. He was about 6'2", 400 pounds, big guy, man. And my first taste of power bombs, and I've hated it since.
Okay. What are your goals for the future in wrestling?
Uh, to keep growing, really. I'm still doing it, and really, I think the mistake that some guys make is they get comfortable or they expect things to be handed out to them, and I'm not quite there yet. I'm still uncomfortable. I still want to go ahead, venture out. I still want to learn more, get better, and not just that, but pass along this knowledge to upcoming guys. I feel like a lot of the guys, they don't get enough direction these days.
Yeah. Alright, so we're gonna do this little music break where I just play one of my songs for 30 seconds to promote it out there.
Okay.
Where is it? Spotify. If the app will load. Here we go.
All right.
Back to these questions.
Okay.
Can you describe your wrestling persona or character?
I feel like it's if I had to summarize, I would say Rocky Balboa mixed in with Sting, man. I started out as kind of like an underdog and that people could get behind. But the more time came on, the more people just kept going behind me, and I just tried to give them something to cheer for it. And Sting was one of my all-time favorites growing up, which I neglected to say. It was so much that my one of my best friends said, "Oh man, that's like your wrestling dad." So so definitely, I would say those two are my main influences.
I went to WrestleK this year up in Winston,
Oh man,
and
I know exactly what you're talking about. That line was insane.
yeah, yeah, and it cracked me up. I went the next day, and I was like, "Oh, I bet Ric Flair's line's gonna be crazy." I'm like walking around the down the riding down the escalator, and there's like maybe like 6 people in line for Rick, and I was like, "Okay, so they were only there for Sting and
Oh
Darby."
wow, that's insane.
I wanted to go up to him and ask him like, "Do you got the Woo energy drinks that's like supposed to be sold in the Carolinas because you're from Charlotte, North Carolina, supposedly?"
Yeah, I think I've only seen one of my friends post it, and I want to say he was at a state, but I could be wrong by saying that. But I've not seen him yet.
Because if you look on GNC, they have it on their website, but it says out of stock. So like for me in the Carolinas, the nearest one is Concord Mills.
Oh man.
So I was like, well, I bet if I go into Charlotte, I'll find it. Nope.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
And then I found out he's not even from North Carolina. He's from Georgia.
Um, see,
So
I was gonna say at one point he grew up in Minnesota, and
yeah, let's
I
see
think
where
his
he's.
family adopted him, and then he moved down here. Maybe I can't remember the exact story behind it, but yeah, he's not a native, but I mean he's kind of adopted, so that still works.
Exactly. And it cracks me up because every time you know, I asked my dad because he grew up around Ric Flair and the
Uh-huh.
Road Warriors and all them
Oh wow.
back when WCW was around.
Yeah,
So he was dating one of the Nitro girls,
that's
not
crazy.
the Nitro girls, the promoter's daughter.
Okay.
So after the shows, he would go to the bars with all the wrestlers,
Yeah.
and he always tells me he's like, the one thing that always stuck out to me is like we'll go to the bar and then Ric Flair go around for everybody, and I'm like, just imagine being like underage and Ric Flair's buying everybody beer, but you're not allowed to have it.
Well, I've heard an insane Ric Flair story too, and I can't remember who told it to me. I don't know if it's been circulating around. Maybe I heard it off a podcast, but about the Rolex and the spaghetti sauce. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
It was they said one time he got tore up in some restaurant or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, you need to come down." It's like, "I'm Ric Flair." He says, "I can afford another Rolex." Takes his Rolex and throws in the spaghetti sauce or something like that, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I guess you could buy more, but me being the cheapskate I am, I'm like, I couldn't do it.
Right. All right. Can you share a memorable moment from your wrestling career?
Oh gosh. Yeah, there's quite a few. I think one of my favorites is I rode up with some friends to All Star Wrestling in West Virginia, and I wasn't supposed to be on the card, but you know, I think somebody didn't show up that night, so they're
Hmm.
like, "Hey, how about you? You guys mind doing this?" And so my friends, the Mid Atlantic Outlaws, I got to give them a shout out because those are my guys. Um, but yeah, they're like, "Yeah, he's good. He could go." And so I ended up working a 8-man tag team match with Tough Guy Inc. and Rob Conway, man. And it just, you know, here's a former WWE Tag Team Champion. I'm teaming up with him, like, along with Tough Guy Inc. And it blew my mind, man.
Yeah.
Um, Shout out to All Star Wrestling, Shane Storm, Rocky Rage, and the Mid Atlantic Outlaws, too, because, I mean, I wouldn't have made it there without those guys, too. So it was a fun experience.
She cracks me up because I've met John Schuyler multiple occasions.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So me not realizing it was Sean Schuyler at WrestleCade 2 years ago,
Uh
and I said, "Hey, what do I recognize you from?" And he's like, "Cops," and I was like,
huh.
"Okay," and I was like, "Which one?" He was like, "In person, TV and non TV," and I was like, "You could have just said TNA, WWE."
That's hilarious. It's very funny, man, because um, did a show with Skylar years ago, man, and my daughter, God bless her heart, she could be over anxious sometimes or overzealous, excuse me, overzealous. And so it was after the show, it was getting late night. And when she gets sleepy, like it starts going into hyperdrive, the overzealousness. So she looks at John Skyler's like, "Hey, Dad, can I tell him about?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." She gives him three quarters of a football tackle. I mean, John Skyler just like he jumped back, like, "Who's this?" Like, I'm so sorry. I had to apologize because he didn't realize who it was, where she came from, or anything. Just it looked like something out the Water Boy.
Can you describe the feeling of winning your first championship?
Oh man, it's something you don't forget. Um, it's funny. The first championship I won, it's a special moment, but it's kind of bittersweet because they kind of did it just to kind of pop the crowd, which it
Yeah,
worked in the end. It was like a cash in scenario, but I lost it that night. But the next one, man, that mean so much more because I was in a triple threat match, and I don't think nobody told me anything that night. So when I finally went over, it was like, oh my gosh, it caught me off guard, caught my family off guard because I
yeah.
thought we were gonna have some long story about it, but they awarded me that night. So I mean, man, what a blessing.
How do you handle the mental and emotional aspects of wrestling?
Mental, you just have to make sure you're in a good place. Sometimes it's hard because there's been times where I was just kind of like, that doesn't make sense, Why do we have to do
Yeah,
this? But it's one of those things you kind of have to keep telling yourself that, it'll work itself out and just do the best you can. Yeah, I'm one of those people where I feel like I want to let my work speak for myself instead of being that guy that's always in the promoters. You're like, hey, I can do this, 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 and this. Um, I'm hoping if they're watching, they'll see that I can still do the work and be good at it.
yeah. If you have a tattoo, which one is your favorite?
Right now, I have technically it's three, but my favorite is the one on it's like a combo set basically because on my right arm I have I am, and on the left side it has King, and it's very funny because a lot of people misconstrue it and like, oh, you're so arrogant. I'm like, actually, I'm really not. So the story is like, uh, let's see, I have some mental health stuff going on, and depression's been I've been battling that for years, man, since I was a teenager. So I came up with this motto to kind of break myself out of it, and so it kept sticking, kept sticking, kept sticking. I was like, my friend that's a tattoo artist, I was like, would you mind doing this for me? He's like, yeah, man, I got you. He had his own little touch and flair to it, and man, like sometimes if I ever get down, I just look up my arms, just like, here I am.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna start this thing called Trev Shock.
Okay,
So it's you got a certain amount of questions, and you got 50 seconds to answer them. They're pretty simple,
okay,
easy questions.
all right.
All right, let me get the timer because I actually want to start timing this crap, not making up a time like, oh, they made it, and it's I've only had one person actually make it, and
Oh
we
God,
used Paul Walker from South Carolina and Georgia wrestling areas, but he, my buddy was recording, and I didn't realize like he was gonna actually time it
yeah,
because I was like, okay, we got 30 seconds to answer his questions. Yes, you have 6 questions to answer, and he's like, okay. and he got it done in like 15 seconds. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do for these last 15 seconds.
I'll
So,
try and keep up.
all right, you ready?
Yeah.
Favorite pre-show snack?
Uh, P3s.
Pre-show jams.
Said pre-show gyms.
Jams
Oh,
like
oh my gosh! Everybody working on the weekend by Love Boy.
favorite wrestler growing up.
Sting.
Favorite sports team.
Uh, Dreadful. Carolina Panthers.
Favorite color.
Black.
Favorite type of music.
Oh gosh. Rock.
You did it with 7 seconds spare.
Damn. I'm dynamite,
All
baby.
Alrighty, let's see where we. Segment 3. What are your biggest challenges of being a professional wrestler outside of the ring?
Outside of the ring. Sometimes just stay motivated, man. Um, there'll be times where I don't get enough rest or just
Yeah,
having one of those mental health days, but it's like you just got to push through it sometimes, man. And, just keep telling yourself this is worth it.
yeah. How do you feel about the business side of wrestling and the role of promoting, promotion, well, promoting and shaping storylines?
I'm excited when it's done right. And that's the thing, because some people do it and they don't do a great job. Then there's other times where it's just kind of like they just throw stuff together. But yeah, I get excited for storylines.
If you could wrestle any legendary wrestler from the past, who would it be and why?
Oh,
Like I've heard you say Sting, Bret Hart.
yeah. You know what, man? I got to say Ric Flair on this just because he's a workhorse. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he's a guy that forced guys to step up, um, whether it be 30 minutes, 60 minutes. He was that guy, man. I'd love to kind of test that, kind of force myself to go and keep stepping up and getting better.
Yeah. If you could attend any wrestling training session with any wrestler, who would you pick?
Oof, that's a tough one. Uh, you know what? I got to go ahead and go with a local guy, man. He's trained a lot of good guys, man. Let's see. I would say Lodi.
Lodi?
Yeah, I hadn't had a chance to train with him, but I know he's in North Carolina,
Yeah.
and I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that just to kind of get the experience and get the knowledge off of him.
He's in the Matthews or Monroe area. I know
Right.
that.
Right, and I'm like dead center North Carolina, like in Burlington, man. So it's like wherever I go, I'm gonna have to travel, but I wouldn't mind doing that one time.
I remember when I first started training, I would drive down to Columbia, South Carolina from the
Oh,
Charlotte area
oh wow,
just to go train
yeah.
under Ethan Case, Raylan Albies.
Oh man, yeah. Ethan Case is another good one, man. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he does.
Yeah. I will say, like, if I did not attend their academy, 100% this podcast would not be a thing.
Mhm.
And that is just because I used to have like a fear of talking on camera.
Yeah.
But we did promos. And I remember my first promo was a self promo.
Oh,
And I was like, okay, cool, great. I'm a hockey player. I got this. My turn comes, everyone's standing around the ring, and I am straight up just like, man, I just hyped myself up just for what? Like, forgot everything about myself, and I'm like,
oh man,
so
it
it
happens.
turned out to be just calling out people and everything, like, and I'm like, this is gonna be embarrassing. And then they're like, self promos are supposed to be about yourself. And I'm like, I know, and I had like everything I wanted to say. I'm like, right now, I'm a 6-time House League champion. I'm a 4-time soccer champion.
Yeah.
I'm a Southern guy to the heart. Would always want to work on a dairy farm.
Right. That's pretty dope, man.
So, all right, back to these questions. If you could have a wrestling legend as your mentor, who would you choose?
Man. I had to go back to wrestling pops and that Sting. Just because, I mean, I'd love to just kind of pick the brain all day because, I mean, he's learned from the best, like Ric Flair, Barry Windham, I'm sure Tully, Dusty, guys like that, man. I mean, I'd just love to pick his brain, just get the knowledge, the years experience because, I mean, it's funny because I try to emulate him so much that, people are like, man, I kind of see it with the energy and things like that. And that's one thing I try to want to keep alive and keep building.
Yeah. So on 2K, I have a universe mode called the shock the shock verse. So it's me as a booker. I have people, basically like WWE runs it.
Hmm.
We have a world tag mid card and cruiserweight. If you were on that show, what title would you go for?
Uh, I would go middle just because as crazy as it sounds, I'd like to go ahead kind of work my way up. I mean, I should do a tag team, but I'm just like, I don't know. I kind of like being solo sometimes, but yeah, I really feel like I could kind of build that middle title.
All right. Another person I would ask. One person also surprised me was I met Jordan Grace at WrestleCade this year,
Okay, that's cool, man.
and I did not realize like how small she was. Like she's the same height as me, and I'm like, I thought this girl was like huge, but and then I was like, you know what? Let me just ask her what's her rate to be on a podcast, and she's like, got to go through TNA because I don't even know my booking rate.
Oh
I'm
wow,
like, okay,
that is insane.
because I want to try to get her before she goes to a bigger promotion where they don't allow it and everything.
Right, gosh,
Even
man.
though TNA is a big promotion, but
Yeah, there's definitely bigger.
yeah, WWE, AEW, New
Yeah,
Japan.
yeah,
I guess Noah now since they got Omos
yeah,
and Shinsuke.
yeah. And I mean, no way am I knocking TNA, man. It's just, you know, I still I feel like they took a step forward than when they let Scott Demore go, man. It kind of took
So
maybe a half step back a little bit.
I had a friend tell me he was like, the owner of TNA works for WWE, and I was like, oh, I know that. That makes sense.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're bringing them up. That's been the rumor, I think, for the last few weeks or so.
Yeah, because the guy's name is Nick Khan, and then if you go look at SmackDown or Raw's producer things, or what they have on the end of the show,
Yeah,
underneath Triple H's name, it says Nick Khan.
yeah,
So I'm like, either he's learning to get better as a promoter or a producer, or he's just partnered up with WWE and this TNA and NXT story
yeah.
is going to be a big, huge one coming up.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be a huge year for hopefully for all of wrestling.
Yeah. Hopefully it knocks AEW out of business, but that's just me as loyal to TNA.
I really, I want to see more from AEW, but just man, I don't know. We're not going to nitpick. I'll just say I
Especially
love all wrestling.
this Ricochet thing that they got going on with the toilet paper.
Oh, I've seen that dude, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, I hope they use that to kind of fuel him and build his character. I mean, it looks like that's where they're
Yeah.
going, but it's hilarious.
Because you can even see it on Ricochet's face. Like, he's like, why am I why did I sign to this promotion? Like, if he goes to New Japan,
Yeah,
I feel like it would be good because he does all those high flying tricks. New Japan's known for that.
yeah. I think the problem with AEW is the same that people have been saying for years. They're just overstaffed more or less, and I think if
Yeah.
they had their core guys and gals, I think it'd go a lot farther. But you know, that's neither here nor there.
All right, back to these questions. This. Hey, what's your opinion on the wrestling crossover events with other sports and entertainment industries?
It could be good and done tastefully. Um, I hope it never gets to the point where it's kind of like John Stossel and Dr. D, where somebody tries to say the F word to WWE and somebody loses their temper.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's as protective as they were back then, but there's still plenty of guys that are around that have that spirit, and I would hate to see that kind of history repeat itself.
yeah. Let's hope it not because it's under a new era starting Monday,
True, very true.
which I just got my Netflix up and running since.
I'm hoping
I
Netflix gets their stuff together. I tried to watch a movie the other day and it kept buffering and eventually just cut off on me. I'm like, seriously? And Raw's coming Monday?
right. What advice would you have? I mean, would you give an aspiring wrestler?
Uh, Ears open, mouth shut, and studying us. And
Yeah,
I think that's something that the veterans have passed down to me because it's like too many times you'll give advice to the young guys, and instead of trying to listen, they'll talk back like, "Well, I, I did A because I think B stinks and C just doesn't work for me." And then just like, "Well, listen, why don't you try B to compliment A?" And and then they get cut off. I've seen that
yeah,
a few times where veterans get cut off or they try to explain stuff, and it's just kind of like, I'm done talking. I mean, heck, I don't really consider myself a veteran, even though I've been doing it for a while now. I mean, there's still times where even like the little stuff that I know where I tried to tell somebody and they're like, they came up with excuses instead of listening. I'm just like, okay, you know what? Do you?
yeah.
So sometimes you just gotta be humble. That's the main thing.
Can you talk about a significant rivalry you had and how it helped you grow as a wrestler?
Oh man. Uh, my very first rivalry, if I had to say anything, not knocking anybody else, but man, Shane Martin, God bless his soul. Uh, Best friend no longer here with us. People literally thought we hated each other. Like I had people coming up to me at work like, "What is going on with you on Facebook? I see you making a video about this guy. What's going on?" And like we kept it up, man. Like there are people that really thought we hated each other, even though like we text each other like at least once a week, every other week, things like that. We were friends.
Yeah,
And I mean, man, he brought the intensity. He's like, "Good God, man, I gave you a heck of a beating. You all right?" I'm like, "Oh man, I'm good." He's like, "I'm proud of you." So yeah, that really helped shape me, really get me going. You know, that really
yeah.
did. I miss him, man.
What was it like working with a particular wrestler that you really clicked with in the ring?
Oof. It's pretty cool, man. Because I mean, I'll say I've been very fortunate enough to have quite a few good dance partners, man. And um, it's like some different people bring different things to the dance, man. Because I'll give a shout out to one of my old dance partners, Matt Houston. One of those things was listen and learn. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I feel like we had some great matches, dude. Uh, Ivan Ali, which man, the fact that he's not signed to non-TV, man, that's insane. I'll say
Right.
that that's insane. He's incredible, man. Eric Royal. I mean, it's so many good people I've had the honor of sharing the ring with, man. It's just it's hard to go ahead uh, call everybody out, man. So if anybody listens, whoever listened to this, please don't take it personal if I didn't include you.
Can you describe your training process and what was the most challenging part of learning to wrestle?
It's very. It doesn't happen to everybody, but I
Yeah.
really feel like I wrestled amateur in middle school and high school. I was fortunate enough to coach it as well, and I feel like those little nuggets that I learned from that actually helped me through wrestling. Because I mean, I picked up on it fast, and they were impressed. Like my original trainers, they're like, "Oh my gosh, man, you're picking this up good. You know, this is kind of insane." So I was
Yeah.
very fortunate in that, and I feel like that boosted me as well as shout out to not only dysfunctional disorder but also Josh Gary, man. You know, dysfunctional disorder started it, and Josh, aka Mick, I call him Mick, but he kind of carried the torch and teach me little basic fundamentals, things that kind of tweak just a little bit to improve, man.
Um, what hobbies do you do like outside of the wrestling world?
Uh, let's see. Love working out, spending time with the kids. Um, Gosh, I got to get back into games at some point, man, because my kids will put me on these games sometimes that years ago would have killed them, but now they're beating the snot out of me. So,
Yeah.
um, trying to not trying to sound like an old man, but I've really gotten into crossword puzzles now. So,
See, for me and my dad, we play whatever the newest golf game that's out there,
uh-huh.
and we make it like once, twice a week. We go play it on the PlayStation 5, and we're like, always he's better than me just because plays. He's been playing golf games since he was
Yeah,
kid age, on the Atari.
gosh,
So
that's memories.
yeah,
You know, and speaking of golf, it's one of the funniest things, man, because it's like there's a group of guys that do it at my work. Like a group of them go out and go golfing, and it's like they're surprised that I took a golf class years ago, man, younger years, and I'm like, golf is actually pretty fun to play. I wouldn't watch it on TV, but if you asked me for a round or two, I'd at least give it my best.
right. Well, speaking of that, so we're having our 1 year anniversary of the podcast.
Okay,
Plan is going to be to have like a giant golf tournament with stars that have been on the show.
okay,
The winner's going to get a brand new golf bag,
nice.
podcast colors. The top from second to fifth is going to get like a gift bag
That,
with, depending on which place you are, a certain amount on a gift card.
that's pretty cool,
Because
man.
if I'm spending $200 to $300 in a golf bag, I got to at least make it fair and not feel
Right,
bad.
right.
So if you want to be in there, just hit me up towards springtime, and we got me and my dad so far in it. Got to DM everybody else if they want to,
Okay,
but there's going to be teams of two. So figured me and my dad are going to be on the same team just because it just makes sense.
yeah,
Fun, but I was like, if more people join in, if I get one of my favorite wrestlers around the world to join, obviously I'm going to choose them over my dad. Because I asked my friend, and I was like, if this tournament takes off and we get Zaya Brookside on this thing, I'm going to be like mentioning this tournament to her because she
right.
does go outside of wrestling. But I've been watching her since NXT UK.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So to meet her 2 years in a row at WrestleCade, my first year, I started crying because I actually met her.
Oh, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Can't beat that.
So, and then this year, went up to her, bought a T-shirt, got a picture with her, got to talk to her more about being on the podcast, and then so on. All right, last two questions I got for you.
All right,
What is your favorite gear that you have ever had made?
wrestling wise,
Yeah,
uh, that is, I don't. It's a tie between 2 years, man. I feel like 2018 was my favorite year because I really caught fire that year. Um, I learned a lot that year as well, man. But I just wanted to just kept working. But also 2019 because I had some personal things that came up in my life, and it's just started second guessing a lot of things. But wrestling kind of helped me persevere and kind of get through it as well.
yeah.
So really, just the fact that I just didn't let that flame die. Wrestling helped me make sure that flame didn't die, man. That helped me out a lot. So yeah, I would say those 2 years would probably would be a tie.
And then where can they find you on social media?
Instagram. Let me see. I
You
always
need me
forget
to.
the. I think underscore CTNT
Yeah.
and Facebook Chris TNT Taylor.
Okay. I was gonna say if you can't remember it, I have yours pulled up just in case.
Thank you, man. Because everyone's like, "What's your Instagram?" Hold on, give me a minute.
Because like I have my my one that I use every day, and it's Trevo Shelley
Mhm.
that I just post like wrestling shows I go to, or taking pictures with people, or just random stuff. But it's also tied to my podcast, which this one is Tell It to Trevor, no spaces.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Chris,
Yes, sir. It was my
for the
pleasure.
podcast.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on here.
And then, guys, we are doing a giveaway for the end of the season 3, where you could win a T-shirt out of five T-shirt designs. Where I had a business design it all. So if you want to enter it, go ahead, guys. Link will be in the bio. And yeah. And then if you guys are in the Denver, North Carolina area, go check out Wrestling Evolution.
They're on my list too. I would love to talk to them.
Because they are one of my sponsors. So I figured I'm like, let me throw them in.
Yeah, I would really like to go ahead and talk with them.
Peace. All right. Thank you again for being on the
Hey,
podcast.
thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
No
Keep up the good
problem.
work, man.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
You too.